Australian developers are crashing. Let's have a look. Good morning everyone, Florian Heise here and welcome to another episode of Heise Says. I've got my morning stein of coffee and I thought we'd look at this article from the ABC. It's an analysis of development, or developers that are starting to go under here in Australia. It's becoming, sadly, an all too common situation of events. I was on the phone to a friend yesterday from South Australia, another architect. He was telling me I think 9 builders had already gone bust in the city since the beginning of the year. And anecdotally, anyone you talk to in the game is feeling it. They are feeling it one way or another. And we're starting to see these big developers going under, builders going under. But apparently, now's the time to get into the housing market because it's hit a floor and it's about to shoot right back up, as the real estate agents are telling us. Of course, I don't think real estate agents are legally allowed to say it's ever going to be tough times. They can't do it. They might lose their license. So let's have a read of this article and have a little bit of a look at it. Construction industry cracks showing as Raylan Group goes under. The cracks first appeared in the buildings. Now they've begun to spread across the industry. Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. And literally, this is cracks not just physically in the buildings. It's now, that's foreshadowing what's going to happen to our construction industry just because of a loss of confidence. I can't believe anyone thinks that people will still buy off the plan. I don't know why you would. Why? I mean, do you think you're going to make that much of a saving? The collapse of 2 high-rise apartment developers, the Sydney-based Raylan Group and Melbourne's Stella Group, within the past month has ignited the property industry's worst fears. The large numbers of would-be buyers either are unable or unwilling to settle on pre-sold apartments. Pre-sold apartments. There's a similar thing in the gaming industry where you pre-purchase games. They get all the hype and spin. They make these beautiful intros and then you pre-purchase the game, pre-order. And when you get it, you're disappointed. You're disappointed. I somehow think it's exactly the same thing here. But psychologically, if you've made such a big investment, it's going to be hard to not convince yourself that you made the right choice. Lured by the prospect of easy profits in a booming market, property investors snapped up units off the plan, armed with a small deposit and in many cases a non-binding assurance from a financer, usually the bank. And have you heard of all the stories where the developer changed their mind? They had sunset clauses so they could get out of it at the end and then on-sell them for larger amounts, or change the plans and you still have to buy it even though you're getting a smaller apartment. But the property downturn in the past 2 years has seen sharp falls in apartment prices in Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne, adding to the already depressed markets in Perth and Darwin. See, this is the thing. Our population has increased by nearly a quarter, by just over a quarter since 2000. That hasn't been by natural birth, that's been by immigration. Now, I would argue, at hazard a guess, that that's put a little bit of pressure on our demand for housing stock in this country. And a lot of it has been in unit developments, and they've been going up everywhere. Even here in Brisbane, you can see them all over the place, shooting up. Now, I've read an article recently where Perth, they were looking at increasing the density of the city areas around the city to have 1.5 million people living there. Are we going to keep increasing our population growth? Our water supply hasn't increased. Our wages have stagnated. When you increase the supply of your labor force, your wages aren't going to go up. It's that simple. When you put more pressure on your infrastructure, the quality of services that you get, we're in a per capita GDP, we're in recession. Quality of life is going down. So this really just feels like a bubble. And I can't be the only one making the pieces together, but I suspect most people will only see the headlines, will see bits appear. They're just too busy with their day-to-day, struggling to keep the money coming in and paying their mortgages. So off-the-plan buyers in a sticky situation. That's put many would-be investors underwater, left holding agreements to pay boom time prices usually well above the current market rates, and that's when things get sticky. The agreements with the bank was never a guarantee, it wasn't even a promise. There you go. I mean, what's the cost? Do you lose your deposit? Is that the worst thing? Maybe you need to look at the actual loss you're going to make. Seek professional legal advice. Don't ever listen to a talking head on YouTube. So, while the bank may lend money. Often it'll only be for a reduced amount, leaving the buyer scrambling to raise the extra cash to buy an overvalued apartment. As an off-the-plan buyer, however, there is a legal obligation to take the unit. Oh, really? Either they cough up the full final payment or face default, which results in losing the deposit and being potentially exposed to legal action to recover the full amount. See, this shows you how unfair it is. When there's sunset clauses where developers can get into it, it's just one-sided. And that's just a difference in capacity. That's why you need to get independent legal advice when you do these type of things. Don't trust the real estate agent. You know? The situation has been deteriorating for the past year. Banks have been under pressure to impose greater scrutiny on borrowers, finances, and eradicate the irresponsible lending practices that help fuel the property bubble. Okay, cool. We need better financial education in this country. We need it all over the bloody world. We need it all over the bloody world. You know, before you can vote or run for politics, you need to learn about the Austrian school of economics and get a bit of understanding. What do you reckon about that, guys? Property research group CoreLogic reported in April that about 1 in 5 units bought off the plan were now valued at 10% less than the agreed purchase price. That was way above levels of a year earlier. Not surprisingly, there were far more underwater for less than 10%. About half of all units up for settlement came up short of the agreed contract price. See, this is why when you're buying off the plan as a buyer, you'd want to have the contract price pegged to index. You'd want it to be adjusted at the end of the contract. Well, that's the thing. If it goes up, you may have to pay more. If it goes down, you may have to pay more. Maybe peg it within a range. I don't know. The developer, it's probably too busy. They won't even accommodate you like that, so it's kind of pointless, isn't it? Economic nightmare scenario. For smaller, private-owned developers like Rayland, this creates the kind of liquidity crisis from which there is no recovery. It is also the scenario the Reserve Bank has been praying would not play out. Earlier this week, residential approvals, particularly for new units, slumped to a 6-year low, 26% below the levels in the same period last year. Yeah, no, the economy is doing fine, guys. It's doing fine. Even without the sudden shock of collapses such as Rayland, with a pipeline of 3,000 units under construction, that kind of industry downturn will result in large-scale layoffs. According to investment bank UBS, the recent slide in construction job advertising is consistent with its forecast of about 100,000 job losses before the end of this year. 100,000 job losses before the end of this year. I mean, yep, I agree with that 100%. That really seems to be what's happening. I mean, and today now, the US has imposed additional tariffs on China. And regardless of your opinion on that, it is going to have a flow-on effect to us here in Australia. Because China is one of our biggest export receivers. 35% of our export goes over to China. If there's a reduction in demand for the requirements of that, how do you think it'll flow through the economy? I think I'll get to, I've got my bamboo here, so I'm going to try and get drawing ability improved with a pen on the computer screen, and I'll do some thought experiments. I think it'll be interesting to do, a bit of fun. After pledging to drop the unemployment rate to 4.5%, it's little wonder Reserve Bank Governor Philip Lowe has been urging the Commonwealth and state governments to fire up infrastructure spending. Then there's the ripple effect across the building supply industry. We read about that yesterday. Share prices across the sector tumbled on Wednesday after cement group Adelaide Brighton downgraded its earnings for the second time in 3 months and canned its dividend. On Wednesday, its shares slumped more than 18%. The slide continued on Thursday with another 5% drop. Expect those falls to be mirrored by interest rates. Well, this is interesting. The threat of 100,000 job losses in the construction sector. Yeah, I mean, if you're in the game, guys, I would strongly suggest you seek financial advice or counseling if you don't have everything under control. Limit your debts, cut your costs as much as you can so you can ride it out. Because the thing is, okay, tough times happen. tough times happen, and we're overdue for a tough time. If you can last it out, when it goes back up, that's when you can be positioned and ready to make some money, to take advantage of it in the construction game, as a tradie or anyone in the profession. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to watch, and I'll keep talking about everything that's going on. Let me know what you think, guys. Are you worried about the 100,000 drop? I mean, yeah, I think it's definitely happening. I don't know how anyone can be arguing that the economy is doing fine at the moment. Maybe they're just not thinking about what everything's going on. Maybe. Anyway, guys, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching and joining me for this video, and I'll see you later today. Take care.